Coming up on this week's episode of the Ask Women podcast, we have divorce expert, but actually not really a divorce expert, even though he knows a lot about divorcing, but he is an expert in getting back out there after divorce. And he's giving guidance on what apps to use, what things you need to do to prepare yourself for dating in the new world. And then he tells you his story about what he did to now be in a wonderful new relationship with the woman of his dreams. So keep listening. And so now Simon is going to tell us all about how to get back into dating once you've divorced. So I want to hear the story about you and my friend. And I don't know if she's comfortable with me saying her name. You can, if you feel that she's comfortable with it. But yeah, tell me how you started and how you knew you were ready to get back into dating, and then what you did to get back into dating.
And how long after?
Again, how long afterwards? He's like, one day.
I mean,
I know my
me,
friend went right on to those dating apps. Like that was what she did to distract herself. She went right on to the dating apps.
I almost think people do it as a coping mechanism. And I feel bad for the people in the dating world that aren't there as a coping mechanism and they're actually looking for someone. But I understand that that's like part of the process. Yeah. But do you think it's unhealthy for someone to start dating immediately? I would imagine it's a little.
Yeah, I mean, I've read all kinds of things about what the appropriate time is to get back into it. And I've thought a lot about it. And in terms of my own experience, I mean, I waited, probably about 4 months until I started getting in. Yeah, for me, I think you ask a really good question in terms of saying, well, is it unhealthy? I think it's important just to have clarity. Like, if you're going back into dating, like you just want affection and sex, or is it like you're looking for a life partner? I think the difficulties come in when folks are they're not exactly sure what they need for themselves, or they're doing it because they don't want to be alone and they haven't done the work to discover what they really need. I think that's where problems come in. And I caution people against doing that, partly because we don't really want to hurt other people in the process. Right. Because a lot of people are making themselves vulnerable in the dating process, and you should be as clear as you can be about what it is you need, even at the cost of, sort of disappointing or getting rejected, because that's where it gets a little bit messy.
If I was going through the divorce and my husband started dating like 2 weeks after, I'd go, okay, well, there's my answer. He's really happy about this divorce. It almost seems like the sooner you date, the happier you are about the divorce. Obviously, that could be different, but that's how my like self-deprecating brain would read it. Be like, oh no, he only waited 2 months. He really hated me. I was the worst. But maybe it's just his coping mechanism.
Right. I think sometimes people rush and they haven't fully grieved. So they're just looking for, like a dopamine experience. They just want some excitement. They just want to party and enjoy. So it may not be reflective of how ready they are. And that's the thing. It's such an individual journey. I read somewhere where it said you should take 1 month for every year of your relationship. And I thought that formula was a little bit, it's just too canned. And everybody's different. It just depends
on who you are as well. And at the same time,
how much your last spouse sucked.
Right, exactly. If you were dead inside at the end of your marriage and you just want to go out and live and maybe potentially meet somebody else that could be a good partner for you, and you've been out of your marriage for longer than just announcing the divorce and you're ready, then you can get back into it right away, I think, or I would assume. It also just depends on who you are and how you figure things out. Because I also think that exploring other human beings is a really great way for you to learn again about what you like, what you want, what you're ready for. So I don't think shutting yourself off completely from other types of human interaction via dating is a negative thing. Again, it depends on who you are.
Yeah, and I actually agree with you. I think part of the discovery process is meeting other people. These relationships can sometimes serve as mirrors to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we can learn in part what matters to us and what doesn't matter to us. But I think sitting with it and unpacking it and really understanding your journey and being intentional will help you get to where you need to go. But like minding the grievance process for guys in particular, I think a lot of guys, they don't know what grieving is. or they don't really give themselves time to heal a little bit. What happens in relationships when we don't heal is we tend to like bleed on other people. So in terms of my experience, when I realized that I really wanted to relearn who I was, I got married I think I was pretty young when I got married. I was in my 20s, 26. I was ready just to meet people and just to relearn. I mean, it's a different game.
Yeah.
It's a completely different game.
Well, I was in an 8-year relationship, and that feeling builds. It's almost like, I don't know, a bag of chips when the bag's closed and there's all this extra air in there, and the air just kind of, when you open it, you just kind of feel the air get out. It seems like that divorce, the moment you can just kind of open your bag of chips, it sounds so stupid.
No,
and
I agree.
Just let go, and just let the fresh air in and just live again. It seems so refreshing, or it was for me at the time too.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Can I use that?
Please, I'm crazy with the analogies. Yeah, my potato chip one is all yours.
That's going to be his new logo, just like a potato chip bag opening and like the air fizzling out. But it is actually, because it's this fresh start, and it's like, oh God, finally I can open this bag and I can relax and I can eat the chips that I haven't been eating for the past 8 years. I understand completely.
Yeah, if you have that mentality, like if you're out of your relationship and you already feel like it's time to open the bag of chips, I think that's a sign. Because a lot of folks,
if you're jonesing for some Doritos, it's just when you're going to allow yourself to have those Doritos, they might make you feel shitty and good at the exact same time.
I was reading a whole bunch of stats on divorce, and it was saying that like most women initiate divorce, and most women are actually ready to divorce a year prior to the date that they announce it. So I think a lot of women go through their grieving process while they're still in the marriage. And that's at least what I'm getting from what I'm reading. I don't know if that's true. And I don't know if men are still single focused on having their current marriage survive, that maybe their grieving process is different from women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's fascinating that regardless of who initiates what, I think there's so much momentum and gravity in favor of staying together, even if you're not married. If you have invested a lot in that relationship, and that relationship is also a space for children, and there's a home, and there's so much surrounding it, that folks tend to want to stay together. But who initiates it, it's a fascinating thing. I think the statistics are fascinating because there's a number out there about 50% or so marriages in the United States end in divorce. I've never been able to find a statistic on what percentage of married people are actually happy.
Like 3.
So
yeah, I know. Yeah, 2.8.
That's what it sounds like from everybody that I talk. Everybody's miserable. That's the truth. So people who are listening to this podcast are like, "All I do is want to get married." Maybe don't. It's not happy. Like all of my friends are miserable.
When we have these conversations, it refreshes my point of view on being single, because I'm single and I'm 36. And so with society and with your own standards, you can start to feel really bad about it. But then, I saw a tweet, someone said something like, I'm 33 and I haven't been married. So just statistically, I've already missed my first divorce or something like that. Like at least I'm not going to be part of the divorce statistic.
Interesting.
And so it's a way to flip the switch and kind of see it from another point of view.
But for those who do want to try to get into another relationship or marriage, what were the steps? Did you get back online? Did you try to meet people in person? So like after you've done this stuff to refine yourself, figure out who you are, figure out what your intention was moving forward, even if it wasn't a clear intention, if I want a new relationship, what did you do to get back out there?
And I'll add in there too as well. Sorry to cut in, but I want to ask as well about finding out how the dating process works now, because when you got married, obviously it's much different. So did you feel overwhelmed? How did you figure out how to use, dating
like the internet
sites
just started when you got married?
Lingo.
Yeah.
It's like being let out of prison.
Right.
It's like,
yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier about the game has completely changed. I mean, I'll give you hopefully an illuminating story. I was in Vegas at the Caesars Palace pool, and I'd been there before.
I think that's one of the grieving
pool.
steps too, right? For men, is that they have to go to Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It almost sounds like that's where the divorcee pool would be. Like that's where all the divorcees go.
Holy cow. And I have a story about that too. But I'm sitting at the pool and I'm not seeing anybody hit on anybody. like before, back in the day, you were at the pool, like you approach. It's Marty. That's the old school way to do business. There was none of that happening. Everybody was on their phone. And I found that fascinating. And it was clear to me that you cannot just kind of date in a traditional way. I mean, it's fine to approach, but there's an entire world out there of folks swiping. And I had to become, Marnie, I wish I knew about I read your book at some point later in that process, but I didn't have you to consult with, obviously, and that's fine.
I think you did fine.
But
you did well.
I had to relearn this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I hit the gold, hit the jackpot because, I'm not going to say her name, but she's an amazing woman. But in terms of like how you get into it, really, it's a lot of trial and error, or you have to consult with somebody who knows what they're doing. And for somebody who's been divorced after a long marriage like me, 14 plus years, like we don't have a community like that. And all the people that were around or I was around weren't in the game. So for me, it was a lot of trial and error and discovering and just learning the platforms of all those apps. They're so substantially different. Everyone has an angle. Bumble gives the woman control and Tinder is the simple, easy, accessible one. But I think at first I was just sort of like, okay, Tinder, because that just seems to be the easiest platform. But a lot of it was just actually relearning how to have conversations with women and not being afraid that it might come back to haunt me. It's
what about mentioning your divorce? Like, what did you learn in your communication? Like when you first started, did you talk a different way to women than you did when you eventually were more successful online?
I think if it was just a casual conversation, I would never discuss the divorce necessarily up front. That was too heavy in the beginning. If I'm not answering your question, let me know. But in my profile, I mentioned that I was newly single. I think that's the phrase I hate the stigma of divorce. I find it.
Yeah, I get that.
Because what is divorce in the end? It's really a big breakup with legal implications. Yeah. So if I hadn't been married, to what extent would I disclose the details? I felt like I didn't want that to be an identifying characteristic. It would be
maybe it just means you might owe money to somebody for the rest of your life, like that. That's what you're telling
unfortunately,
other people.
Right? I mean,
some of my income goes somewhere else.
Therefore, I'm not,
and there may be
desirable
offspring, right? Like,
I mean, that's something that you definitely, when you're in the dating process, you reveal. And I wasn't hiding that I have a child. I don't. In my case, because I was fortunate in the circumstances I had, it was no support involved. So there wasn't a financial obligation to anybody. It was very clean. We were very amicable. No disputes, no issues. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm not suggesting folks lie, but for me, if I was having a conversation, approaching a woman or whatever, I wasn't going to say, "Hi, I'm Simon and I'm divorced." I would have been inclined to just say hello and flirt and get to know.
Hi, I'm Simon. I have a huge penis and a child. That's what you say.
That's right, exactly. So it's a partly a trial and error thing, because what you can't be is inauthentic either. So you have to find what your authentic self is, and then you have to read Marty's book.
Right.
Well, I think part of that is also using timing to reveal your authenticity. Whereas if you walk up to somebody and just say, "Hey, I'm Simon, I'm divorced, and I'm super dead inside," that's going to scare someone away. But if you can give off that same information just slower and much more delicately, and still be authentic. So I think it's just, you can be authentic, but it's all about time rather than the dishonesty necessary. It's not dishonest necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, it's I
completely agree.
It's like a disclosure process, and I think that disclosure process, it should be respected too, because that's how you develop vulnerability. You show vulnerability, and you connect with someone. Because I'm a 42-year-old man. Like, I have not met someone in their 40s who hasn't gone through one, who's not sort of, for lack of a better phrase, damaged a little bit.
Damaged, yeah.
And, do we reveal our vulnerabilities right up front? No, it scares I don't know if I could say the S word. It scares people.
Yeah, the shit out of people. Yeah.
And so, of course, just as common sense, it's just like how, when friendships develop, as you get to know someone, then you become more and more vulnerable and your secrets come out, and then everything is out there. If you've got a partner that you trust and you love and you want to know their secrets and you share
and
yours.
that's just a part of you.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, so, okay, I'm just going to tell a story for a second. So I have been trying to learn how to meditate lately, or at least to try to slow down and calm my anxiety. I have a crazy story about going to an anxiety support group. It was not a successful trial for me. But anyway, I went to this meditation class and it was really nice. And they had 40 people in the room and it was a guided meditation. Basically, I just got to relax and like zone out for a bit, which I enjoyed. And this woman told this story, and I'm not going to say it correctly, but she was talking about this guy who had been hired to build a wall full of bricks. And he was given 100 bricks to build this magnificent wall. And he worked so hard. And then by the time the wall was done, he took a step back and he goes, oh shit, those 2 bricks are slightly off. And he's like, oh God, I'm so disappointed in myself. He couldn't stop fixating on those 2 horrible bricks that were out of alignment. And so the person who had hired him to build the wall came to check on the wall and see how it was. And the person looked at the wall and goes, oh my God, the wall is amazing. It's everything I ever wanted. And I couldn't have dreamed of anything better. And the guy goes to him, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You must not be able to see those 2 bricks that are slightly out of alignment. And the guy goes, of course I can see those 2 bricks, but you know what I'm looking at? The 98 other bricks that are perfectly laid out. And I thought that was a really cool story because the instructor started talking about how so many of us focus on these 2 crooked bricks that really just kind of give something character, but they think that that's all that their wall is built of, these 2 crooked bricks.
That analogy is nothing compared to my chip analogy, just for the record.
No, your chip is way better and way faster.
Thank you.
But does it help you meditate? That's the real question. The point was that you have to go into conversation when you're dating and focus on the other 98 bricks because you're not just the divorced person. You're not just dead inside, hopefully. There are so many other things about you that are fantastic and awesome. And that's what you lead with first, the 98 other bricks. And then, you're like, you know what? What if I had X, Y, and Z happen to me? I'm divorced. I hate my wife, or whatever it is. That's when you can sprinkle those things in. And that's what gives you character. But focusing on the other wonderful things about you are at least my advice on how to go with your conversation when starting out dating. So I wanted to ask you a question. How long did you date for before you met my friend? And like, how many apps did you try, or did you do a lot of in person too?
Yeah. So I tried 3 apps, I think. I tried Bumble, Tinder, and JSwipe. And as a Jewish kid, I really had my heart on meeting, connecting with a Jewish woman. I didn't think it was possible, likely, especially because I live in Seattle. I grew up in LA. But I to answer your question, I was dating for, I'd say, September to April. So about roughly 6 months, 6 to 8 months on and off.
Okay.
And there was one person that I was seeing for a more steady period of time during that process. But, it was certainly a massive period of exploration. And I went with 3 apps. And frankly, I found dating, there was a business side to dating. Like there was a lot of slogging through first dates.
Right.
Because it's hard to tell when you match with someone and you're having a conversation. It's really hard to tell whether there's a connection. And then you meet up and you can tell like the first 60 seconds, like this is not going to fly.
Really?
Oh yeah.
For me.
Would you tell people to get on the phone first? Like, is that something as a buffer zone so that you don't waste so much time?
That's one strategy. I tried that a few times and I felt like this was going to be a human face-to-face project and I needed to do that in person. And also out of fairness to them, like let's give it a shot. But what I found, I actually would make those first dates fairly short. And I was criticized by a lot of my later people I met, either, like friends, for example, who are single, are like, why'd you do that? I'm like, well, because I wanted a reason to I wanted an escape hatch. Like I didn't want to necessarily give myself
it's going to be a drink. And I don't want to commit to dinner if, this is going to be...
If she sucks.
And
I committed to dinner on 2 first dates, and I highly regret both of them. And I've been on a lot of first dates. So I always just do drinks because it's the same. It's like time is of the essence, especially, for someone in their 30s who isn't, necessarily having their eggs frozen or something like that. Time is money in that sense. So I will not go to dinner for first dates anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're alone there.
What about coffee?
Yeah. So women are open to it as well.
Coffee, I don't prefer because there's no ambiance with coffee.
Kristen's an alcoholic too.
I want to get shit-faced. I want to be the best version of me, and that involves alcohol. But the other problem with the coffee date is that there's no ambiance, there's no darker lighting. It doesn't really lend to feeling romantic necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a coffee date is more of let's literally just see each other in daylight for a few seconds, see if we can stomach each other. And then if we can, cool, we'll have an actual date. And if we can't, then peace out. And I think that's just, if someone says, do you want to get coffee? To me, it's just like, oh, they're so hesitant about me. And it doesn't read well. But at the same time, I understand why people do coffee. So I just don't think it's the best environment necessarily.
What happens if the prospective date is sober, can't drink, doesn't drink?
I call him a pussy and I say, take that shot of tequila, asshole.
If you want to be in me later, you better have a drink.
I have had that happen before. And to be honest with you, it is like a bummer. It's a bummer. I understand the sober thing, but it's like you lose a friend
that's people's
sobriety.
Like, right. For me, I probably would like if someone was like, let's go for a hike. Like I would not be opposed to that at all.
See, and I would hate
Nor
that
would I be
because
opposed to a coffee.
Right. See, and someone like me, you just have to feel out who you're dealing with and who you're trying to ask out. Because for me, I look horrific when I'm hiking. I get out of breath. I don't want them to see me with pit stains before they've seen me like looking attractive. So I rule out those types of things. I like a very safe environment of a nice bar or a nice restaurant at the bar with a drink or two, nice music. Boom, bam, perfect. Anything beyond that is like anxiety provoking, is kind of, it's unknown. It just doesn't lend to necessarily the most confidence if that's not your thing. So if you're not a hiker, you'll go,
right. But then that's also where Simon's guidance,
right?
Yeah, Simon's guidance from the beginning half of the show comes in, which you were disconnected, so probably didn't hear this. But he was talking about figuring out who you are, what you like, join those groups, become a part of it, and like, you get to reinvent yourself. So for me, I would say if I were to go back out there, I would use it as an excuse to like do all the fun things that I've been secretly wanting to do for so long. I would go to a rage room. I would go play mini golf with somebody. And I would do all of those things to get out and do this. So my point is that, the guidance that we give, it's not like, okay, go to a bar. That's the only thing that you can do with a girl. There's like a million things you can do. But what I'm hearing from Simon and from like each of us actually, is that you also have to decide who you are. And then you're picking another partner. And hopefully this time you're picking better. So you want somebody who wants to do the same things as you, not somebody who you're like, oh, definitely. Okay, I'm sober, but I'll go to a bar to meet you.
Definitely. But I feel like that's a second date activity. Like I would totally go mini golfing or hiking, or maybe not hiking. But on a second date, I do something fun. The first date is to feel out whether or not I even want to do something fun with this person. Because say I decide to go hiking. It's like, well, I already hate hiking. And now I'm on a hike with someone I definitely hate. And now I'm stuck and he, could murder me. So
that's true. That's absolutely
I just always feel like the second date, you can
true.
Totally do something fun. But the first one,
that's true. I agree with you. Yeah. Coffee or a drink. Keep it short. Yeah. Okay. So Simon, you had like these short dates. Yeah. And then how long after these short dates did you find somebody that you actually were like, oh, okay, I want to date this person again? Or how long till you felt like you were back in the groove and had a handle on dating?
Yeah. For me, the litmus test was connection. So I have these, first date, there's a bookend, a time by which I'm like, hey, I've got a commitment I've got to go to. And unfortunately for me, first dates were where a lot of things ended because I was a little bit more selective and I kind of had an idea what I wanted. And in terms of connection, that was hard for me to find. In the case of finding my current partner, I found her on an app. And I sort of deviated from what I would normally do because I was not in the same city as her.
Yeah.
And a lot of the beginning was similar, which is texting. And then it was a phone call. And then it was like, I really need to see you. Like the draw and the magnetism was so strong. And I was so intrigued and curious about her and her energy that I needed to get on a plane and fly to LA. And that's what I did. And really the rest just all came out naturally. We're immediate strong connection. She has a lot of the qualities that I was looking for, and I just got really, really lucky. And it's just an example of like, you can hone your dating process and make it really particular and perfect for you, but you have to leave room for deviations and serendipity because things can still happen. And so for me, that where I currently am with my partner, as amazing as she is, it wasn't necessarily in line with how I normally dated.
Okay. Interesting. Is that
But
because she lived somewhere else that wasn't in line, or what was the out of line?
we never had like a drink on a first date at the bar where I had bookends, where I was saying,
Right.
I've got 45 minutes.
And stayed with her for a weekend. Right.
Right. And, of course, I bought it was a risk. Of course it was a risk on her end, but it was a risk on my end because I bought a refundable ticket, because I'm like, I may show up and she may be like, oh man, you're ugly. Like you're not anything like you were in the picture. So yeah, but that's the thing. That's the exciting thing about dating, right? It's that unknown. You kind of have to embrace the fact that stuff may not happen exactly as intended. And I can't say enough how, the other side of fear is excitement. And I really enjoyed the process, even though it was a lot of work. And even though it wasn't always productive. By which I mean, it didn't necessarily result in a second or third date. Right, it didn't always work out
the way you wanted it to, but it was like a learning experience. Mm-hmm. Would you say that it's kind of like a good thing for people who are through their own grieving process, whether it's 1 day or 3 months? Would you say to just like dive in full throttle? Because I know that a lot of people either hold back because they feel like they're out of touch or out of the game, so they dabble in it. Would you say to just dive in completely?
I suppose that's a strategy. I'm a big believer that like there's two emotions. There are two emotional states. There's fear and then there's love. If you're diving in because you're scared shitless to be alone for a minute, then I really caution folks to not do it. Like you have to know who you are and what you want. But if you're just really wanting to open that bag of chips and you're so freaking excited to finally actually breathe oxygen because you were in a stifling relationship and you just want to get out there because you have love for the world and you want to be in it, go for it. There are some lessons you're going to learn. Like you can read a million books, but experience is really the best teacher because those lessons will stick with you forever. And so for a lot of people, if you feel like you want to, like you're pulled and motivated for good reasons to be out there and meet people. The other thing is like we have inflated expectations of dating, right? Like, oh, I'm going to meet this person and we're going to sleep together. No, it's like, just have fun. You're just going to go out and have a drink. If you keep your expectations low.
Yeah, drill it back.
Yeah, exactly. And, there was good people out there.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Every opportunity is an opportunity for something else. Like, so I went backpacking and I just remember that this was my biggest lesson from when I went backpacking when I was 18, 19 years old. We had a horrible experience on the plane ride over. But then when we would go to hostels, we would tell people about our horrible experience and then we would like gain friends from it. So like me and the person that I went backpacking with, we quickly realized that every bad experience is a great story and a great opportunity to share with other people. So, even if it's not, if it's a dud of a date, it's like a story that you can tell afterwards. Oh, I went on this one date and this happened, blah, blah. It's something else to share with other people. It's not necessarily a reflection on you.
Also, a lot of good things come out of mistakes or, things that didn't go well. So maybe you don't have a great date, but on your way home, you happen to see a guy or a girl that looked like your type and you stopped and said, hey, you wouldn't have seen that person unless you had gone on that bad date. Yeah.
You got out. So I wanted to ask one final question before we wrap this up. I wanted to ask about resources that were the most beneficial for you. Because I know that, yes, there's great resources for learning about divorce. I don't want to hear about those ones. I want to hear about the resources that you had or used to learn how to get back into dating again. Things that helped you hone your skills after 14 years. And, you don't have to boost my ego to say you read my book. 'Cause I know you read my book and you liked my book, but what are some other resources that you use that were really beneficial for you?
For me, it was a lot of sort of revisiting and understanding what a good, healthy relationship looks like and what it takes. And that means and researching and reading about what makes a relationship successful. So I read a lot of stuff from Esther Perel, she's a psychotherapist who talks a lot about the balance between eroticism and safety, the need for love, and to balance that with the need for lack of predictability and excitement. So I read her stuff. I read John Gottman's stuff, The Relationship Cure. And that's kind of, I really wanted to focus on what works as opposed to, what didn't work and what the problems were in my marriage in particular. So that helped me understand, because the Gottman material it's very valuable because it also talks about maintaining friendships and bids for connection and what those look like and how to manage those and not letting your ego get in the way. So I would direct folks to that. And also my therapist was very helpful in the process.
That's awesome. I love those resources. Actually, we had this woman, Tara, on our podcast a while back who we discussed Attune. So that's a John is it Gottman or Godman?
Two T's, yeah,
right?
Gottman.
Okay. So that's his method that he uses for communication in couples. And so we're actually creating a program based on Attune. But I think that that's such a strong skill set that can, just learning how to talk to other people, but talk to other women and hear their emotions. And there's a way that he explains how to do it where you still have your confidence and strength and masculinity at the same time. So I think that's a great resource as well.
Absolutely.
So thanks for sharing that. But thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. I know it was your first one, but when, I went over to my friend's house and you were telling me about what you were doing, I was like, oh my God, you have to come on this show. So I just think I knew you were going to be a great guest. So this was really helpful for me. And I know for the guys listening who are struggling with this or are maybe in the middle process of getting back out there. So I think this is a great show. But can you tell people how to find out more about your company and what you do? Because I'm very sure that you will be expanding soon.
Yes, and thank you both of you for the opportunity to be on here. You can find me at www.catalyticcoaching.co, and I would love to hear from you. I've really enjoyed my journey, and it's been such a discovery process, but discovering through other people and being able to help them has become a real joy for me. So I appreciate and welcome any attempts to reach out and say hello.
Awesome.
Amazing. And Kristen, do you want to tell people about your new website?
Yes. KristenandChill.com. You guys can get new profiles for your shitty ones, so they won't be shitty anymore, and banter help as well. And that's it. So just go to KristenandChill.com and hit me up there, and I will be at your service.
Wonderful. And I wanted to tell people about a couple of upcoming products I have that are coming out. I don't know when, probably the next month or 2 months, but I have a visualization and mental rehearsal program. I've talked about that before on the podcast because we had this great guest on our show who talked to us about the importance of mental rehearsals so that you don't have to actually practice in person and face rejection. You can mentally rehearse. So I teamed up with NLP expert Mark Singh, and we are creating a visualization program and mental rehearsal program, which is going to be amazing and awesome and really helpful for those with leadership concerns and approach anxiety concerns. So it's coming out soon. And then I am doing that program with Tara on, it's not relationships, but it's about trust and communication with women. Again, it's based on John Gottman's Attune, but it's got, our own female perspectives and flavor added into it. And I'll tell people more about that when those actually do come out. But in the meantime, you can continue listening to the Ask Women podcast. You can go to wingirlmethod.com and get a ton of at-home systems that will help you with your specific needs with women. New episodes of the Ask Women podcast come out every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific. They're also up on YouTube now. So go to youtube.com/Marnie Kinrys. And there's a whole section just for Ask women podcasts that people have been going and listening and watching. Yeah, you guys are awesome. We'll see you next week.